have been watching Invincible since it started. Granted, I have always been late to the ride. You know me, I like to binge rather than watch/read weekly. That waiting thing is agony for me. I hate it. Invincible caught my eye just like everyone else's in the first episode, final scene, with Omni-Man killing everyone. What made it so different other than the shock value was the premise it created. We knew it was going to be more than your average superhero story. There was going to be suspense, drama, angst, good old detective work. This was a story, not a shonen manga with only action, not a comic book with a three-issue story. This was a story with numerous story beats, emotions, suspense, heartache, and most of all, continuity. Continuity. The consistent operation of something over a period of time. A child growing into an adult is continuity. Water flowing continuously in a river is continuity. A story having a beginning, middle, and end, with all of its story beats completed at the end, is continuity. You know what doesn't have continuity? Comic books. Or at least comic books of this day and age. I love comics. DC and Marvel were my first interaction with superheroes in action. It changed my whole life. I was a hardcore Marvel and DC animated moviegoer. I love Young Avengers, Hulk vs. Thor vs. Wolverine, Justice League War, Young Justice, and a classic, Under the Red Hood. In high school, every time I got to go to the library, I would read the Green Lantern comics, and it was the Darkest Night series. It was like that whole thing. I would read that over and over and over again. I was obsessed with it. That's all I read. Comics have a special place in my heart, but nowadays it's so hard for a comic series to grab me, and it's mainly because the story isn't continued. I read manga and anime more than ever now because comics aren't doing it for me. And it's not because, oh, it's Japanese, or, oh, all I have to do is start at chapter 1. It's because the story has a beginning and an end. It follows one arc at a time. A completed arc, I might add. That's my issue. Comic book arcs are so quick, it'll last like 3 issues, and then on to the next. Maybe that's not a problem in old comics, but comics in this day and age all have abrupt endings to their arcs, so they can go to the next arc. And those endings are so bland and non-lasting that it's like it never existed. Let me give you an example. In the Miles Morales Spider-Man comics, in issue 8, Miles was taken by a villain called Assessor. There he was tortured horrendously for days, and pushed to and past his limits. He was put through trials to extort his powers, placed in surgery while being fully awake, electrocuted, poisoned, gassed, beaten, everything you can imagine, it happened to him. Miles wasn't the same. He was hurt, beaten, and mentally not himself. His uncle and dad saved him in the next issue, and we see him struggle with what happened. He hadn't put on his suit in weeks until he is forced to. And if we see him struggle to battle the villains, they even get away. When Miles gets home, he is surprised by his family with the birthday cake, and in this moment, he feels understood, at least by the people that matter most to him. And with that, he couldn't be better. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's the issue? The issue is, something of that level of torture shouldn't be done with 3 issues. Miles was tortured mentally and physically. He was changed. We should see him struggle with that, not be back to normal. After the arc, it's only mentioned a few times, but it's no bigger motive. And if your rebuttal is, well, Iron Man found that sister and he got it and he beat his ass. If it didn't happen in his own comic, then I'm not considering it as a completed story. The arc has so much substance and could have been branched out way better than it was. Whether it be getting revenge on an Assessor, or Miles dealing with the pain, or even someone using the results of his torture for their own gain. What should not have been right after that arc is him fighting his uncle randomly at night. The same uncle that saved him and saw how beaten and mentally broken he was. And now you're fighting that same nephew of yours like it never happened? Like it never happened. That's my issue. Comics these days, the arcs happen so quick you can almost throw it away and not miss anything. I could literally skip 5 issues of a comic and it doesn't matter. It's like I didn't miss anything because it's never brought up again. And I know that's not the case with that specific Spider-Man arc. I know how the clone arc Brink comes back from that, but that doesn't exclude the fact that there are a bunch of comics out here who have this exact issue. Like half of the DC comics Rebirth and New 52 have major things happen that should develop a character or overshadow something, and it never happens. Like it was a memory wipe. Manga has consistent storytelling. Movies and shows have consistent storytelling. It's straightforward and not extremely complicated, where you need to have read 3 different issues from 3 different comic series to know what's going on. And unlike most comics, Invincible follows one storyline. From beginning to end, we are following a arc with Mark. Everything lines up. Because he got powers, he became a hero. Because he became a hero, Omni-Man killed the Guardians. Because he killed the Guardians, Cecil found out. Because Cecil found out, they eventually fought. Because they eventually fought, Mark and Omni-Man had to fight. Because Mark and Omni-Man fought, Omni-Man left the planet and Mark was mentally beaten. Because Mark was mentally beaten, he had to prove to himself to Cecil that he is not his dad. Because he's trying to prove himself that he is not his dad, he's saving the planet consistently. Because he's saving the planet consistently, he runs into his dad and fights Viltrumice. Because he fights Viltrumice, his planet's life is threatened. Because his planet's life is threatened, anger is swelling inside of him. Because his anger is swelling inside of him, he releases it on Angstrom and kills him. Because he kills Angstrom, his brother's ideas of killings are altered. Because Oliver's opinion of killing is altered, he argues with Mark. Because of that argument, Mark's no-kill rule is questioned. Because Mark's no-kill rule is questioned, look, I could go on for days. You see what I'm trying to say? It has a point A to B to C to D. It has continuity. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing happens randomly, except for out-of-nowhere scenes that set up future arcs that will inevitably matter. See, even a random forgettable shit is continuous and has a result that is not forgotten. I haven't read comics in a while, so maybe that issue has been fixed. But the last comics I read was a major problem that made me drop the comics altogether. Watching this last season of Invincible has brought back the love for comics I have, and I want to read comics again. I loved them, and I'm so glad Invincible fixed my main issue with comics. And I'm not even talking about how deep and rich the story Invincible is. That can be for another video. Invincible is what comics should be. Hopefully they already have. Like manga and anime, the story goes at a natural pace, leading to built-up scenes and character beats. I've been enjoying Invincible so far. Now that the season is over, I might have to give comics another shot. You know, maybe that new DC Absolute comics, I might give that a shot. I've been hearing it's been going crazy, so you know, there's a chance. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Please let me know your opinion on my hot take in the comments, and I'll see you next time.